right, so good evening almost, and thank you for coming out this late in the day, right before the party. My name is Andrea Anderson, and I'm going to lead you through the session together with Damien. And the session is about designing the experiences you saw earlier this morning in the keynote. So the two are obviously closely related, right? So hopefully, in my world, because I had user experience, we think about design should happen first, right? And so a lot of the things you saw this morning are actually powered by our design system, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. So I had the user experience and actually also the what we call information experience, the documentation team here at Guidewire. And so any complaints about our documentation, you can bring here. Anything on the design side, I'm the person responsible. And with me is Damien.
Yeah, hello, I'm Damian. I'm UX designer here at Guidewire. Yeah, and I'm from Poland, and I'm working on Jutro design system. Yeah, so components, patterns, and everything in between.
Yeah, absolutely. So he'll cover a topic called tokens. Yeah. So first, again, different people have different opinions about what design systems are. So we'll start just level setting a little bit and then talk about Jutro. We have actually had the design system for a while, and I'll talk a little bit about the history, and then we'll want to focus on what's new and answer any questions, and then get you to wherever you need to go next. So I know you're well trained on the safe harbor statement. Anything we present in this presentation could be forward-looking and is not a product you can buy off the shelf, and anything that is said in this room stays in this room, I guess is the appropriate way of putting it. But it's our general disclaimer, right? So we have worked with many of you and your digital teams on what matters when you do digital experiences, right? And I forget now, Aubrey, I think, said it faster, right? So experience is one of these topics that changes all the time. Our users becoming more picky, right? There's never enough UI developers and designers out there. Your salespeople are yelling at you, why can't you get that new product line out there, right? Why can't you make that pricing change quickly? You have business users that are struggling with the UI, and maybe they want to do something faster or differently than we designed it, right? So it's a lot of pressure in the digital experience space. And there's a lot of expensive stuff people do, unfortunately, as well, by customizing the user experience. And what a design system really does, in short, it takes a lot of that grief away from you. So UI technologies, I've been in design now for, gosh, 20 years. I think this is the fifth biggest UI technology wave I've been in, and I suspect now with Gen AI, which I consider actually a user experience technology as well, it's the sixth one we're going to go through, and there's going to be more coming, right? So when there was the time before design systems, and I had teams that did this, right? We would all happily run along, and one team would design the claims experience, and the other one would design the customer service experience, and the other one would maybe do the quote and buy experience. And every time you did this, the team did their own thing, right? Their own theming, might have been close to your brand, right? Maybe they did their own modal. This is what I'm showing up here, right? Well, in the end, what this does is not only really deprecate the user experience into something that's probably not terribly usable, but it also is costly. So if each of your teams does their own UX design, their UX styling, their own modals, drop-downs, et cetera, it just gets to be super, super complex. And then all these changes and faster, right, this agility that we're all looking for, I can promise you is not going to happen. So when I came actually to Guidewire, we just started on the Guidewire Cloud applications, and we had no design system. So I needed to pretty quickly help our designers get started, help our developers develop all these things you're getting now, right? And so actually I had to invent a design system for my team because we didn't have time to do things that are not harmonized, but also that are costly to build. We also don't have enough UI developers, in my opinion. So design systems, though, are a fairly recent phenomena. Some of you might have your own design system, and we talk a little bit about there's flavors of design systems out there. But in general, what we're also finding from many of you, when you launch your digital experiences, right, you want them themed. And what if you go to market with several brands? You might have 5 or 6 themes, right? Maybe the same UX, but still different themes, right? So design systems are not only proven from a user experience perspective, but they also help you with that visual branding. And these are just some benchmarks. It's actually the Volkswagen Group, which is, amongst other things, a car company, but also does a lot of digital design, right, for their apps. Actually did a study on how much the improvements are on both the design time. So some of you might have your own designers, some might not. So you might have to hire that talent, right? With a design system in place, a lot of the best practices have been designed, and so your design time goes down. And the same on development time, right? Aside from driving consistency, higher customer engagement, and a faster time to market. So it's a good time to be in design, basically. So the Jutro design system, as I said, started as our own design system because we needed to have it for our new cloud applications. And then we started, of course, talking to many of you and looking at lots of digital experiences. My designers look at this stuff every day: claims, quotes, CSRs, underwriting, right? What is out there? What is needed? And we basically wanted to make it easier for your designers and front-end developers or your consulting partners to create these wonderful digital experiences you saw this morning. So we heard about the Jutro digital platform. So I will say it's a little confusing because the Jutro design system actually has been around for now 4 years. It's been used in the Xengage applications. So some of you might already have been using the Jutro design system. So now we have a platform that allows you to build basically true web apps, because Xengage, it came from the on-prem days, right? We lifted it up to the cloud, but it is fairly opinionated how it wants you to do user experience design. Well, our users have become a little more picky. We don't know what all your users need, right? So we basically came up with this web platform, web application building platform, and the design system is part of that. But it works with Xengage as well, same design system. Don't think they're two different things, right? So the idea here is really we wanted to give you more flexibility if you want to build a new customer service rep application, right? If you wanted to embed an application, perhaps in a banking app to buy mortgage insurance, or if you wanted to do a claims experience through an auto dealer, perhaps, right? You can build all this now with actually using the Jutro component library, pattern library, and the digital platform. So it's pretty exciting, actually. It's very nice. So the design system includes, and you get this as part of the Jutro digital platform, part of Xengage, right? So there's no extra charge or anything for it, I guess. It has basically 4 to 5 pieces. Enablement is the documentation piece. But one is what we call the UI framework. So if you look at designs and websites out there, there aren't really that many what we call floor plans or layouts, right? So you have the 1/3, 2/3, you have the full screen layout, right? And the reason for that is, amongst other things, a consistency, but also some of you might want to do these things for mobile devices, right? And so if you have these floor plans, they also make it fairly easy to then launch a mobile version of your application, should you need that. So that was actually one of the first things we did. We created these floor plans because, again, we needed them too. You don't want to make a page layout over and over and over. That would be absolutely crazy. So then the second thing, of course, is the tiny stuff, right? We sometimes in design speak call them atomic components, things like drop-downs, right? No designer wants to redesign a drop-down over and over. It's been invented. There are best practices out there. So we give you those with a certain set of properties. So for example, you might decide, oh, I have this input field. I need a tooltip. It's just a configuration basically, and you need to fill in the text fields. So we try to pre-think a lot of these micro decisions so that you don't have to do the heavy lifting. If you have a design team, they probably have something similar out there, so you can certainly do that as well. And so that was step number 2. And so we have about 48 components now. They're fully accessible, which I'm very proud of because I do believe our interfaces need to be accessibility compliant, secure, translatable, should that matter to you, right? As soon as you do business in Canada or across the world, you need things that are easily translatable, secure, of course, performant, et cetera. So all that heavy lifting work has been done for you. And the really cool thing, because we just went through this, is if React, so they're all React-based, if React does go to version 18, which if you haven't gotten there yet, you will, because we had to, we will upgrade the component library for you. And that is actually a little bit more work than I thought it was, but we did that for our components. So that's the next smallest piece. Then we said, okay, and then there are things that are property and casualty insurance specific, right? So I think Richard Day showed this in the Hollard presentation. So pretty common pattern, right? You do claims intake and you mark up where the damage was with this damage indicator pattern. So again, comes right out of the box. If you don't like the blue car, you can make it a red car, I suppose, right? But standard patterns, again, that really don't have any innovation in them. We're just trying to give them to you so you can get started with your digital projects a lot faster. So there are currently 8 patterns we built. They ship as sample code or both actually sample designs and sample code. So think of them as examples that you can change if you wish. Or on some of these, you might want to just use them as they are. And if you have feedback, happy to include it. So then we have what we call the foundation, and Damien will talk a little bit about this, right? So every design system will have the colorful stuff, the look and feel, right? The font sizes, the rounded corners versus the square corners that if you don't care about it, I can tell your designers will, your branding people will, right? What should alert colors be? What are accessible alert colors, right? Because if you're colorblind, green is a little bit of a difficult color to read. What is the suggested text, right? So all this has been documented in what we call the foundation, and now we have some new magic actually for the foundation. And then lastly, because I feel very strongly that I have the luxury of a design team, I know not all of you do, we also spend a lot of time documenting these design decisions. So if you want to know how any of these components or patterns works, what are the configuration options, what are the recommended changes you might make, right? All that is in our design documentation, and you have that all available. Does anyone have designers at home or with you? Okay, great. So we also have all our design patterns, components, et cetera, available as Figma files. So you can download them from our documentation site. All the templates are in there as well. So if you want to start with one of our templates from a design perspective, just to see how it's done, right? Please inform your designers. We're also teaching a class if they want to know a little bit more about that. So designers certainly are great to have, but if you don't have them, again, these examples are also for you because sometimes you might have to get by without them, right? So we did this actually fairly early on. We wanted to also co-innovate with some of you, right? We said, well, that's great, worked for us internally at Guidewire, right? But what does it do to our customers? So this presentation is actually, was from last year. We did a co-presentation with Promutual. They were one of our first X-Engage customers that moved from the Angular to the React design system, right? And so we worked very closely with them because we wanted to find out how can we help them and does this actually make their lives better, right? And there was a lot of concerns, right? So I pointed out some of the screens. They did present them in a public forum, so they're not secret. But what we did is we applied the design system, right? And we applied their brand, so they have this yellow and grayish kind of brand with some accent colors. And quite frankly, they knew they were not very consistent across their various apps. But because we used a design system, right, that drove a lot of consistency. For example, this more elegant stepper, right, looks a little bit nicer than the tabs they had. That was one. All the components you see here are Jutro components. The date fields or telephone number fields, right, they were a little clunky, so we kind of used the design system components, improved those with, for example, a Canadian prefix for the country, right? So all this, again, comes out of the box. You don't have to worry about all those qualities of a component. They did have a couple of custom components, and you will have those too. It's totally fine, right? So when they added drivers, they wanted to have a particular look and feel and user experience. So we designed it with the component library, but we took some liberties on the styling, and they had these cute little driver icons, right? So we made that accessible as well. So this is totally normal. That will happen, right? That you will have custom needs that our design system doesn't have, and then you use our component library and do it yourself. It's perfectly fine. All right, we'll take questions in a few minutes. I want to give Damien the clicker, first of all, and the microphone to talk about what's new for some of you that have been using the design system and also for those of you that are new to it.
Yeah,
thank you.
Thank you, Andrea. Yeah. So let's talk about design tokens. So they are coming with the Innsbruck release, and so December 1st, right? And this work is an outcome of a close collaboration with all of you, right? So our partners and customers. So let's take a look at what is it all about. So let's start with the definition. What's a design token? So design token is a design decision expressed as a name and value, right? So this is the foundation that Andrea was talking about before, right? So here we can see set of design tokens, so like set of design decisions for our button, right? So it's, border radius and its shadow and its font size, font color, everything in between, right? So we are trying to create tokens out of that. So let's take the first token from the top to better understand how to read them. Yeah, so reading token name. So the parts of a design token name are separated by periods and progress from the most general to most specific, right? So we are starting with JDS, and it's for Jutro design system. So all of our components, tokens, are starting with the JDS, right? Then we have token type, and because this is for the primary button, it's component token, right? And then at the end, we have that design decision. In this case, this is the design attribute for background color, right? So we are reading that as background color for primary button in Jutro design system, right? And then, and that's how we do that. So let's talk about why are tokens important, right? So why should we even use them, right, at the beginning? So design tokens are documenting platform-independent design choices. So let's say that you are building iOS and Android app at the same time. So you just need one set of tokens to do like both of the applications, basically, right? So, and the second point is that the tokens are bridge between the design and code, right? So it's just as a source of truth, right? So it's bridging the gap between designers and developers. It's like their shared language, basically, right? So we did a case study. We used tokens with customer projects to see how powerful they are, right? So in this case study, we did not have automation, not even documentation, right? Because this is what was just proof of concept. And like the performance here is nothing else than design to development handoff, right? Time. So the results were amazing, right? We were able to decrease the time from 2 months to 2 weeks when it comes to handoff, right? So that connection, right, and the discussion between designers and developers, it can be quicker, right? So 400% increase in the efficiency, it's a big change just by using design tokens, right? And that showed us big potential in the design tokens in the future. So another example, probably you saw that, right? Because it's connected to the 24-hour this challenge that we had, and that finished today morning. So again, I just wanted to show you that you can be as flexible as you want with design tokens, right? So both of the pages here have the same code and have the same and use the same Jutro components. All you is changing are some like global and semantic tokens along the way. And the result is what you see on the right side, right? So again, it can be connected to your brand and your identity. And that's the point of the tokens. So let's talk about support in Jutro. So we will have around 260 tokens ready for you to use. And also, since the Jutro components been tokenized, it means that our components will use tokens, so you can change however you want them, right? And also, we have full integration between Figma and other tooling for you ready to use. When it comes to roadmap, it's pretty straightforward. It's all about maintenance of what we have because it's working, and we saw that like in the demo, 24-hour demo. But we want to add any additional tokens along the way from the customer needs, right? And that's the focus that we have. Yeah, so if you want to learn more, not just about design tokens, but as a Jutro as a whole, you can register to our session. It's for UX Design Fundamental class. It's like 4-day instruction-led class. And then you can not just learn about tokens, but also how to use components, how to use Figma as a whole. So you will have like better understanding what we are saying here and trying to represent here. Yeah. So if you want to scan code, there will be a registration page for you to check that. Cool. I think that's the part.
So we want to open it up for questions. And Zachary is here with us to run the microphone. So please ask away. So usually the first question I get is, what if I have my own design system? Anyone have a design system? Do you have marketing people?
Well, there is one person.
Okay, good. And everyone has marketing, right? Or you probably have a marketing agency. Yeah, so in our project experience, what happens is, right, somehow they have their brand, right, and have their brand guidelines, and then you or somebody on your team needs to translate that into the digital experience, right? So those tokens Damien talked about is exactly for that, right? So basically the idea would be you map your marketing guidelines to your digital experience so your developers don't have to do it. So it's really, really powerful, actually.
Yeah, and on the other hand, also if you have designers, it also can work, right, with our. You can map your design decision and your style guides with Jutro design system, right? So it's working also in that direction.
Yep. Oh, any question?
So, I'm sorry, from a UX design standpoint, would the design team would need to build that adaptation between our current design to this, right? If we were going to use components that have been designed based on your standard model.
Yeah, that's a good question. So you have up to 3 different options, I guess, right? So you can, of course, continue what was always available, use our backend, right, our now REST APIs, and build your own user experience on top. Has its advantages and disadvantages. Typically, what I see when teams do this is they're very particular about their brand and their way they want to do user experience design. The downside, I guess, is then you own the design, you have to upgrade it, and it might break, right? All the stuff you get from writing your own code, right? We have worked with design teams at customers, so we typically sit down, and at the component level, to be honest, there's really not that much variation. I mean, let's say your designers, instead of having a radio button that's round, want a square one. That's a fairly easy change, to be honest, right? So we try to work together to make as much reusable as is, and if your design team feels very strongly, and there are good reasons out there, that are deviations from the design system, you can always have custom components. It's just they're not going to be maintained and upgraded by us versus ours. We do the React upgrade and all this painful stuff for you. And the same with the patterns. I mean, we debated long, should we be super opinionated? Well, we saw in Xengage that was kind of also not the right thing to do, right? So the patterns are starters. So again, if you elect not to use that damage indicator, for example, and your designers have something else, they absolutely have the liberty to do that, but they would use our component library because that's the bits and pieces to make it work. That would be my recommendation.
So as long as we adopt that same component library structure, then we should be fine because we can put whatever style we want on it, right?
Yeah, and keep in mind behind each of these components is code as well, right? So the other advantage is you get the code basically, and you don't have to constantly code it yourself. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. I know it's at the end of the day and you've been bombarded with information all day long, so. You can email us. I think we have all the same email IDs. So if you want to influence the design system, we're always looking for people that want to work with us. All of us will create better patterns than just my team, right? So we're always very open to input, especially from your designers and your business people. I also own the template design, so we're going to do, of course, a lot more of the templates you saw this morning, right? So again, with your input, we can make these things better and more reusable for you. So we thank you for making your way out here this late in the day and wish you a wonderful evening, hopefully, at the party.